So the other administrative tool, the one that we can do absolutely everything with, and the one that a lot of people fear, is known as the Exchange Management Shell. But there's nothing to fear. There's certainly some learning curves. It's a little bit daunting going into an Exchange exam, knowing they're going to hammer you on PowerShell, and they will. But it can be done, and I'm living proof. I was not a big scripter, was not big into command line, born and raised using Windows, but I've definitely gotten myself into it. Definitely see the benefits that we have with PowerShell, and I've gotten fairly proficient with it, in not too long of a period of time. So my goal here in this demo is not to show you absolutely everything that I can show you in the shell. First of all, the demonstration would be a few hours long, and second of all, we just don't need to go there. So what I want to show you is some of the basics. Now, I'm actually going to start out by launching the PowerShell window from your taskbar, which is where it's going to be pinned on any version of Windows that you might be using as a host for Exchange. Now, I would suggest you get rid of that and instead place the Exchange Management Shell there. And I'll show you why, but in order to do that, let's go over to the start screen. We're going to type in Exchange. I've got the Exchange Management Shell, and I'm going to pin that to the taskbar. Okay. Go back to our desktop. Now we've got the Exchange Management Shell, and let me open that up. All right, so that's going to take a little bit more time to open. It connects to my local server. And let's grab these and put them next to one another, okay? Because that's going to help us see this a little bit. All right, so in PowerShell, all commandlets are the verb-noun type of format, okay? So get-service displays a list of services. Get-process displays a list of processes. This is on the local computer. We could go get process and specify a computer name, and then it would be grabbing it off of that system. Okay, and that can be remote. As long as remote PowerShell is turned on. We can add a little bit more to it and say get process and sort by name. Okay. We can look at those column headings and decide, well, we wanted to sort by something else. So like, for instance, CPU. So get me all the processes and pipe. We're going to sort by CPU, and we're going to do it in descending order. Okay. And then it does just that. We can grab events out of the event logs. So get event, log name, get event log. Log name, system, entry type, error, and then I want to see the newest 10. So the latest 10 errors in the system log. Change the log over to application maybe, and maybe I'll get a few more. Probably not. This is a brand new system. Yeah, we'll get a couple there. Okay, so we can do those things. Now I want to show, because that's just regular PowerShell, so over here in the Exchange Management Shell, I'm going to run that exact same command. Get event log, log name, application, entry type, error, just throw that. Okay, so we got a few errors. I asked for the newest 10, so it was only showing me 10. For some reason I was expecting more. Okay, so I can run that same command. I can run get process over here, all right? And that shows me the list of processes. Here's what you can't do though, okay? I can run get mailbox here, and it's going to give me a list of mailboxes that exist in my organization. All right, there they are. RT admin, Patrick Lohner, and the discovery mailbox. If I try that same thing over here, it's going to come back and say, I don't know what that is. Okay, get mailbox is not recognized as the name of a commandlet function or program. Well, why not? Well, it's because the Exchange Management Shell adds to what PowerShell has to offer. Okay, and so as I had said, I can go get PS snap-in, show me the registered snap-ins, and you've got the the Exchange Management Shell snap-ins there. So I can go add PS snap-in. And we're going to add Microsoft.exchange management PowerShell.snapin. We're going to add that. Okay. We're going to just repeat the command and do setup. And then we'll repeat it one more time and do support. And guess what's going to happen now? What's going to happen now is that if I go type get mailbox, it actually executes because I loaded those snap-ins for Active Directory, for Hyper-V, for others. They're called modules. But I had said before, why bother? I know this is taking a minute, but there we go. Why bother? Everything you can do here, you can do over here. All right. So my suggestion to everybody is if you see a blue background, then you're in the wrong place. And so just forget it. Close PowerShell, unpin it from the taskbar. You don't have to do that, but unpin it from the taskbar so that the Exchange Management Shell is always the one that I open. All right. And then just utilize the Exchange Management Shell. Okay. So having said that, let's go back to just the general syntax. All right, we got get mailbox would retrieve mailboxes. If I wanted to modify a mailbox, what commandlet would it be? Well, to modify, you have to set. Okay, so I can go set mailbox. A very important parameter is going to be the identity parameter, and that's how I'm going to identify which object I wanted to set. All right, so set mailbox Patrick L. And what do I want to do? I want to set, let's say, the issue warning quota to 500 megabytes. Okay, so a simple command, verb-noun, space, dash parameter, space, and a value. Another parameter, space, and a value. Hit enter. And we get the response from PowerShell or from the shell that is maybe not what we're looking for. It's taking a second here, but it will. What it'll do is if the command functions correctly, it just comes right back to the prompt, which is a little disconcerting when you're trying to learn it because, wait a minute, did anything happen? Well, in PowerShell, no news is good news. Okay, if there's a problem, then it'll show you an error. Okay, so if I put in an incorrect value, for instance, it comes up and says, I can't process this argument for this parameter. I find that, not to go off on a rabbit trail, but there's one thing that seems very constant in all classes and talking to people about Exchange. They hate PowerShell error messages. And I will be the first to admit that sometimes they are a little bit ambiguous. Sometimes they do take a little bit of interpretation, but I think it's because our eyes get drawn to different places. I mean, this could not be more explicit. All right. Can't process the argument on this parameter, can't convert this value to this type. Now it kind of spits out a bunch of stuff, but then it just keeps going and it says, it isn't correctly formatted. And then this is the format. This is what you're supposed to do. So it's telling me exactly what the problem is. Okay. So anyway, going back to what we were saying, no news is good news. If you have an error, it's going to come up and be very red and tell you that there was an error. Okay. Sometimes it's not an error necessarily, it's that I left out something. So I want to issue warning quota at 1 gigabyte and I want to prohibit send quota at 1.5 gigabyte and I hit enter and it comes up and it says, can you supply a value for this parameter and its identity? Why? Because I said I wanted to set and I didn't actually say what I wanted to set. So the identity is actually required. I got to put that in there. All right. Get statements, you don't need anything because you're just retrieving. So get mailbox database on this server, PLDC1, and it'll show me the databases on that server. Get accepted domain, for instance. And it'll just show me the accepted domain of plenterprises.local. So get statements, you don't need parameters. If you can put them in there, I can say get mailbox identity Patrick L, and it'll just show me that mailbox, but you don't have to have them. But set statements you're going to always have parameters, enable, disable, new, remove. You're always going to need parameters. Really, get it's the only one that I can think of that wouldn't require parameters. What about something like this? Get user, identity, Patrick Lohner. Okay, so double quotes around that because it's got a space and because I decided to use the full name. Now I could have used the alias, I could have used a user principal name, I could have used 6 different things to refer to that user account. But because I used a value with spaces, I need quotes. It doesn't matter if you use double quotes or single quotes, just don't mix and match. Okay, there is a difference, but we got to be in scripting before it really matters. So, I prefer double quotes, and I just stick with double quotes all the time. All right. So it gets, get me those kinds of things. All right. Now, one thing before we go any further, and that is tab completion. You may have noticed me doing it because I'm not typing out the names of all of these parameters. All right. So for instance, I'm going to go, let's see, get me a mailbox. Identity is Patrick L. Okay. That shows me who that is instead of, let me clear my screen here. Instead of displaying that to me, I want to use the pipe symbol, which is the symbol above the enter key. Okay, the pipe symbol says, you know what, instead of actually displaying these results, I just want to feed them into another command and then act on them. All right, so get me this mailbox, pipe, set mailbox, auto reply configuration. Okay, now I didn't want to type all that in. I didn't want to type that in because it was just long. And so I hit tab. And tab completion works for commandlets. Tab completion works for parameters. And notice I can just start cycling through. If I pass it, I go shift tab and go back. I am currently out of the office. Auto reply state enabled. Okay, and so now we take the one command, we feed the one user into the second command, and it makes a modification. Now notice on this set command, I didn't need identity because identity accepts that piped input. Okay, if that's not completely clear right now, we're going to be going in through that in much more detail because honestly, all of the bulk management stuff in PowerShell is via this pipe command. That pipe symbol allows you to string multiple commands together and have really powerful one-liners. All right. So my point there was just to say tab completion is your friend. It's going to help you go faster. It's going to prevent you from making spelling mistakes. It's going to do all of those things. If tab is not working and it's not advancing, then it's likely that you've got a problem earlier in the command. All right, so let's say get user filter department is equal to marketing, and then I go like that. Pipe for all those users, I want to set mailbox, and it's not tabbing now. So I'm hitting tab and it's not doing anything. Why? Well, because I deliberately missed a quote. Now, if I go here and hit tab, it will immediately complete. All right. So it's also an error checker. It can show you where you might have errors earlier in the command. And so that's very beneficial as well. All right. I'm not going to get into all these filtering things and sorting options because it just gets to be way too much up front. I'm really just trying to cover syntax right now and some of the main things that you're going to deal with. We'll get into some of those examples. So I'm using them as examples. I'm not completely explaining them. Don't worry, I will. We're going to get heavy into this stuff, especially in the recipients chapter, but elsewhere as well. Okay. So the commands are there. If you want to just see a list of all the commands, you can go get ex command. We can pipe more so that it just goes one screen at a time. And we can just view all the commands. All right. Now, nobody's asking you to memorize these commands, but I would say that, and this is a little tip, for the exam and just for using the shell in general, you don't need to memorize the specific commandlets always because a lot of them are pretty obvious. You want to create a new mailbox, it's the new mailbox command. You want to modify a public folder, it's set public folder. You want to create a new accepted domain, it's new accepted domain. So it goes, it flows really well. What you need to know is what the verbs are. you need to know the verbs and what the verbs do. So, for instance, the verb add is kind of common. There's a few places where we use it. It's always adding to a list. It's either a group membership list, so distribution group member, role group member, or it's an access control list of sorts. All right, and there are some other cases as well, but it's some sort of list. Okay, disable is always turning something off. It's not deleting it, but it's turning it off. Enable turns it on. Get is just to retrieve. Okay, it's just to retrieve something. It's not going to do anything. I can't tell you how many questions I've seen on real exam, practice exams, where they're asking you, the scenario is asking you to modify something. And they just simply say, which command are you going to use? And I've seen list of commands on the real exam as much as with as many as 12 commands, multiple choice for you to pick from. And I mean, whoa, how am I supposed to be able to pick from that? I had a question with 12 commands. 9 of them were get verbs. But the question was asking me to do something, to modify something, not just to retrieve. So I was immediately able to completely eliminate 9 of the possible 12 answers. All right, and that's my point. Look at the verb. Make sure the verb, understand what the verbs do. So get, retrieves. There's a ton of these. Because you can get just every object that's there. New, creates, remove, deletes, and then set, modifies. All right, you're going to have a bunch of test commands as well that we'll look at later. All right, and so that gives me and that was actually getting into some of the PowerShell, the basic PowerShell commands as well. So, but you always have that get ex command or get command. Help is always very close by. So help on the new mailbox command. Okay. Now, mind you, if I just enter that, what comes up is possibly one of the most unhelpful things I've ever seen. Yeah, we all look at that and go, what? That's supposed to be the help. There is a rhyme or reason. Oh, and that's not all. It keeps going on and on and on. So there are grouping of parameters. They go together. The symbols mean things. So everything that's not surrounded by the little brackets is a mandatory parameter. Everything inside the brackets, which is a big, massive thing, is, optional. And it also is showing the type of data that it's expecting and whatnot. But that's not helpful. There's just way too much there. And you get to the end of it and it's, okay, that's it. So like I said, we're never going to do just help. What you're probably going to want to do is help new mailbox and then examples. It'll show you a few examples of how you might use this command. It gives you a little scenario and then tells you exactly how to use it. Okay, so that can be helpful. Help new mailbox. Help new mailbox dash detailed. That's going to start out the same as the regular help, but once you get past this first area, then it goes and walks through each individual parameter, tells you the kind of parameter that it is, the value. Well, it tells you if it's a switched parameter. If it's a named parameter or something, it's just going to tell you the data type. It gives me some examples, in some cases of things. And then you have full. You have help, the name of the commandlet, dash full. All right. Or you have this, you can just go help new mailbox dash online. It'll open up a web page, take you to the tech center to the help for that particular command. So that can be very helpful as well. For the most part, I always go with the examples. That's kind of how I start out, and then if I need more information after that, I can get that information. Okay. All right, so I think that is where we will stop. No, I got a couple more things, actually. Get alias. Microsoft has created a bunch of aliases to help us out. So I can do things like cd, and it actually works. The old DOS commands, it's for set location. I can use dir, same thing. It's actually the get child item commandlet, but I don't know why I would ever type that in because I can just type dir. I've typed clear screen, CLS, several times. The actual command is clear host, but it's aliased. So they've created what they call transitional aliases, and they're there to help us, so we don't have to relearn absolutely everything. So you do have that concept of an alias, and then the other thing I wanted to show you was the PowerShell ISE. And so within, thought it was there. So we'll go PowerShell ISE. All right, and this opens up, and it looks just like a PowerShell window. There is a script pane that's just being hidden. The nice thing about the script pane is this my comments. Then if I have a keyword that it actually recognizes, here's parameter and value 1. That's a variable, so it color codes that. And value 2 equals and test value, something like that. And so it color codes everything and helps us out, okay? And it, if I do get process, I've got IntelliSense. Okay, now it's not going to come up. I've got IntelliSense. I can do that in the script window. I can use this just as my PowerShell window. Now, realize if you do that, you are going to have to add those PS snap-ins, okay? Microsoft.exchange.management, support. I don't ever remember what those are. I always get something wrong, so we'll look at. So you would have to run the exact same thing, okay? You'd have to run this add PS snap-in, Microsoft Exchange Management. See, I always get the one thing wrong there. PowerShell setup. It's adding that in, PowerShell support, and then PowerShell, what's the other one? Snap-in. Okay, now once I've done that, if I go new mailbox, it usually takes this a second, so we'll give it a second to refresh there. It did figure out what the command was before. That wouldn't have worked. Now if I go new mailbox, there we go. Okay, and so that's really nice. I mean, this is really nice from a learning perspective because instead of me having to tab through everything, it brings everything up for me. Okay, not only is it doing that, but if you go over here, once you've added the snap-ins, if we go over here, then we actually have some PowerShell stuff. Actually, is that where? No, I need to refresh that because it's not showing. Oh, where are you at? Well, it's not, for some reason, it is not wanting to show right now. Oh, I guess it didn't actually refresh when I told it to refresh. This is a great learning tool. I don't know that you're going to use this on an ongoing basis. I wouldn't think so. This wasn't available to me when I was learning PowerShell because we were back in 2007, and so I would have used it all the time. I'm not going to use it now because I don't need it, But there we go. So there are the snap-ins for that you just added, and so what you can do is you can sit here and you can look at these commands and say, okay, well let's see. Let's go down and find a new mailbox. That's what I'm looking for. There it is. Okay, so new mailbox, we click on new mailbox, and then you might need to maximize and move this around because there are different kinds of mailboxes. Okay, but let's just say it's a regular mailbox, regular user mailbox. And so I go and I select new mailbox, and then I select user. This thing is really hanging up here on me. So I select user, and then what shows me down below are our names. Okay, so let's just go John Smith, and the password, and the user principal name, jsmith pl-enterprises.local. And we can just kind of go down. Now, this is like a real low-end graphical interface, but we can specify the database if we want. We can specify display name. You can go and fill in a bunch of values, and then you can insert it over here. And it inserts it, and then you can, I already had something there, so let's get rid of that. Okay, and then you could run that command, all right? Now, and so it's a good way to learn what's possible. It also shows me what's required, so it shows me the mandatory attributes, and it just wildcards it. So this would be another place you could go to look up information about a particular commandlet. You're just going to have to add those snap-ins in order to be able to do it. All right. So, and like I said, you can use that as your primary shell if you want. And the benefit would be that it uses the IntelliSense. But I don't do that, but that is a great learning tool that you have at your disposal. Okay, so again, it's not intended to make absolutely everything clear about PowerShell, but just kind of show you some of the capabilities. As we move along, we'll keep using PowerShell really every step of the way. And in most occasions, I'm going to use both the graphical utilities and the Exchange Management Shell because we've got to get familiar with it. And as an Exchange administrator, you're going to want to be proficient with it.